The injury situation at Manchester United worsens and Gary Neville calls out the Glazers. That's what we'll be discussing on today's show. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. So let's start off on this injury update. Now, this is coming out from Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic, and Manchester United have also put a statement up on their official website as well. And the headline is, Aaron Wan-Bissaka will be out of action for up to 2 months with a hamstring injury. Absolutely devastating. Obviously, he came on in the last 5 or so minutes against Brighton, and apparently in those last 5 minutes of that game on Saturday, he picked up a hamstring injury and now will be sidelined for as long as 2 months. That is a massive, massive blow. Obviously, we do have Diogo Dalot, which is decent. I like Dalot. He can play at right back, obviously. We have now got Reguilon, who can play at left back. So we do have options there. It's just if we get one more injury, we're probably going to be seeing Lisandro Martinez as the left back and Maguire at centre back, realistically. We're that close now to having, Maguire and Johnny Evans having to be the centre backs and maybe Lisandro Martinez and Lindelof being the left and right back. Like, that is a very, very strong possibility. Now, is there a world where someone like Jadon Sancho can go at right back? I mean, I'm clutching on straws here. Or Pellistri? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this. Obviously, it's another player on the injury table. Now, I just want to run through who we have injured or unavailable at the moment, all right? We have a whole starting 11 of players that are unavailable. So in goal, we've got Tom Heaton injured. Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Luke Shaw, Malacia, all injured. That's a defence. Then you've got Amrabat injured, Kobe Mainoo injured, and Mason Mount injured. That's your midfield. And then you've got Ahmad injured, Anthony, obviously, whatever you want to call it, not available, and Sancho not available. So we literally have a whole starting 11 of players who are unable to play at the moment. It's absolutely crazy. Like, you couldn't predict it at the beginning of the season. Obviously, I'm not trying to give excuses. I know people will say, oh, Erik ten Hag should do better, blah, blah, blah. But when you actually look at the circumstances right now, we have a whole squad of players who are unavailable for either Sancho and Anthony related reasons or due to injury. So we are in a very, very difficult moment, and do remember that when you're getting, upset about the performances and all the rest of it, that we are literally on thin ice now by way of what we have available to us. But do let me know what you think about that one in the comment section below. How much of a miss is Aaron Wan-Bissaka? I think he's a massive miss. I think he's a really important player for us. I think he's one of the best one-on-one defenders in world football in the right back position, and I think he's a massive, massive loss. So hopefully he comes back sooner than 2 months. But yeah, apparently it's up to 2 months hamstring injury, which does usually take a little while and they can't overly rush. So but I have to keep you updated on that one. Quickly, apparently Mason Mount and Raphael Varane are set to return at some point this week. So that's a big positive. Those two will be coming back. There is still obviously a massive list of people who won't be available. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some quotes from Gary Neville on Sky Sports yesterday afternoon. He was obviously talking about Manchester United and talking about the Glazers and talking about Erik ten Hag and stuff. And he says the following. He says, Manchester United have again allowed the manager to influence the signings, and that is my concern with the club. He says they have got no strength at the top. And you know what? I do completely agree with him in that, to be honest, because it's the same thing that happened with other managers in the past. We brought in players who, to be honest, didn't really work in the system. We brought in random people, and now it's literally Erik ten Hag is making the signings. And I don't think that's right. I really, really don't. He then goes on to say, Erik ten Hag will continue to keep doing what he is doing, which is following his beliefs, his values, his principles. The only thing I would say is, how popular is Sancho in the dressing room? How popular is Maguire in the dressing room? He's almost hinting that, has he lost the dressing room? That's what Gary Neville is hinting already, which I think is a little bit premature, but I guess it is a fair question to be asking, Obviously, Jadon Sancho completely frozen out of the team. Harry Maguire, the club captain, stripped of the captaincy, frozen out of the team. Are these people popular within the dressing room? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. For me, I don't really think Harry Maguire is personally, but Jadon Sancho maybe. I know he's good friends with Rashford. I know he's good friends with a couple of other people as well. But generally, I hope that the rest of the players look at it and feel inspired and feel determined and motivated to try and do better after, they've seen the different situations that have happened over the last couple of months. But let me know what you think about that one. He then goes on to say that previous managers have all brought in who they wanted to bring in. I thought that this time round there would be a stronger sporting project behind the scenes that would enable Manchester United to bring in a group of players. But Manchester United have again allowed the manager to influence the signings, and that is my concern with the club. They have no strength at the top. And you know what? I do completely agree with that. I said this on the show this morning that, at the moment, it just feels like it feels like a puzzle, right? Where you're missing pieces of the puzzle and they're just throwing random people in. You know, you bring in Casemiro, who, yes, was one of the best players in the world, but is he anymore? Questionable. You bring in people like Eriksen, who I think did quite well last season, but definitely looks a little bit past it now. You're bringing in random players who I don't really actually think fit this kind of system that Manchester United are trying to implement for the future. You know, you need people who can run a lot. You need people who are really, really good at passing. I know Eriksen is, but I just feel like at the moment it's a little bit of a mismatch of who does the manager want? Okay, let's just bring in some random person. And even then, you could argue Harry Kane was the number one target. We didn't get him. Kim Min-jae was the number one target. We didn't get him. You know, there was quite a few people that we did actually miss out on getting. That were all the, you know, managers' suggestions. None of these were like Richard Arnold says, oh, let's get Rasmus Højlund. You know, this has all come from Erik ten Hag, supposedly. Onana, Rasmus Højlund, Amrabat, Mason Mount. And when you actually look at it, it's pretty obvious to see how those people have been signed by Erik ten Hag and why. But let me know how you feel about this one. Obviously, the press are starting to talk about Erik ten Hag. The word sack hasn't been mentioned yet, which I'm really happy about because I think that is way too premature for me personally. But they are starting to plant the seed. And this is what starts to happen when the results start to go badly, you know. Gary Neville questioning whether, you know, the fact that he's fallen out with Sancho and Maguire, is he, you know, potentially losing the dressing room? It wasn't the right decision for him to buy the players. He's asking all those difficult questions, which was the same as last season after we lost our first two games. And it's the beginning of a mass worldwide media agenda, let's call it, against Erik ten Hag. And that will happen, and we've got to be aware of that. Obviously, TalkSport are already talking about sacking him. Sky Sports haven't used that word yet, but I'm sure if we lose to Bayern and lose to Burnley, I'm sure that will then start be being said. And you know what? There was something really interesting that Alan Shearer said on Match of the Day on Saturday, which I thought was, I actually applauded it when I read it out on the show before. He ultimately said this. He said, I feel sorry for Erik ten Hag. He needs to know, the fans need to know, is the club for sale? All of the problems at the club come from the top. And I 100% agree with that. The problems are, they start at the top and they feed all the way down to the manager at the bottom. But it's the manager who's in the limelight. It's the manager who gets the blame, even more so than the players who don't perform on the pitch. It's the manager who's under the spotlight. Nobody outside of Manchester United fans usually point the finger at the people above. They say, oh, stop making excuses. You always blame the Glazers. And I really, really respect Alan Shearer for saying this on national TV on Match of the Day, because he could have easily said, oh, he's out of his depth. They need to bring in a new manager, blah, blah, blah. But we clearly can see that that isn't the problem anymore, right? You bring in Mourinho, you bring in Van Gaal, you bring in Ole, you bring in Ragnick, you bring in all these managers who, bar Ole, are relatively well regarded in world football. Mourinho, one of the greatest managers ever. Louis Van Gaal was a good manager a long time ago, you know? And they've all failed. They have. And you can't just always say it's the manager's fault. You can't. So I'm glad that this came out. But I want you guys to let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything. Obviously, we've got some massive games coming up this week. Let me know what your score predictions are for the Bayern game and for the Burnley game. This has been Daily Red Devil. I've been Kieran. Please do make sure to smash a like and subscribe on your way out. And I'll catch you all later.